to reason. Will you open your eyes and to wonder what you'll find with an open mind? You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta,
Hello and welcome to the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is the talented Jen Peoples.
Well, thank you.
Today is Sunday, February 10th, 2013. We are a live public call-in access television show based in Austin, Texas, dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We are also available through live streaming video at ustream.tv. The official Atheist Experience website is www.atheist-experience.com. You can provide feedback by commenting on the official show blog, freethoughtblogs.com/AXP, or you can email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you enjoy this show, then you should check out our sister podcast, Godless Bitches, which I believe is now supposed to be airing every other week. You can find links at the Atheist Experience website. And if you're local to Austin and you enjoy this program, then we will be going to dinner after the show, as always, at Threadgill's at 301 West Riverside Drive, arriving at around 6 p.m. So welcome to the show. How are you today, Jen?
Great. And before we get started, I have to make a note here that today is actually the 16th anniversary of the Atheist Community of Austin.
Fantastic.
So 16 years ago today, the ACA was recognized by the state of Texas as a 501c3 educational organization. So happy birthday, ACA.
Okay, and thank you, Kellen, for starting it.
That's right, yes.
Wherever you are.
Yeah. So if you're interested in starting your own atheist community wherever you live, please take a look at our history. It's on our website. Give you some ideas about how to start an atheist community where you live.
So, cool.
Yeah.
So what's on your mind today?
Well, we got an email last week that got me thinking about the Bible as fan fiction. And just to give you some context about this, in the email, it was someone who had been in a conversation with a Christian friend of his who, he told her that you can't cite the Bible to validate some other part of the Bible. And her claim was that she can because the Bible is made up of multiple sources and therefore it's not technically like citing itself. So, in other words, she's saying that since there are multiple sources in the Bible, meaning I guess multiple authors, saying the same thing, then there must be some truth to it. So, yeah. And this is actually a fairly common Christian claim that, because the Bible has so many different authors, that, they all wouldn't have made up the same thing. So, it's got to have some truth to it. So I want to acquaint people with...
As if they all simultaneously made up the same thing in their heads without, reading each other.
Right, yeah. So, little relationship to fan fiction here. So, for those of you who are not familiar with fan fiction, these are stories about characters or settings that are written by fans of the original work, but not by the original creator. So in fan fiction, we've got basically this canonical fictional universe that other people are contributing to. So they write stories about the same characters, the same places, the same settings, and they give their interpretation of it. And usually authors don't regard this as canonical. Basically, they don't recognize it. It's just sort of a labor of love that fans of a particular work will do.
Yeah, I mean, a good complex story has not only the written story, but this whole, incredibly detailed backstory on the universe.
Right.
So, George Martin's Game of Thrones, for instance, has this massive history that he has to include in like appendices and stuff,
Right.
just so you know what the characters are talking about. And so other people who are not George Martin are, sometimes take it upon themselves to go and just write stuff for the internet to read that
Exactly.
also takes place there.
And that's typically what happens. Most of the time, fan fiction, it's published on the internet somewhere for other fans to enjoy. And I think for a lot of the fans who contribute to it, it's sort of a cathartic exercise to get their stories out, how they would like, these characters to interact or the story to go.
And some authors are more cool with this than others are.
Exactly. And the example that I used in this email in responding to this was Anne McCaffrey. She's the author of the Dragon Riders of Pern stories. And in this story, you've got the dragons and their riders, and it's this mythical planet Pern, and there's this threat, this parasitic thread that comes down as their main threat. And the dragon riders fight the thread with fire. So these are fire-breathing dragons. They fight this thread. And McCaffrey actually has co-authored stories within the Pern universe with other authors. So she has specifically authorized other authors to write in her universe. And in particular, she gave her son, Todd McCaffrey, and her daughter-in-law permission to write in that universe after her death. So in this case, she's taken essentially some what you might consider fan fiction, and she's brought it from the non-canonical, strictly fan fiction part into the canonical universe there. And that kind of brings us to what happened with the Bible, and why is it so much like fan fiction? We think about with the Bible stories, you've got a common theological movement, the backstory, that lots of people would have been familiar with. They probably wanted to tell a lot of other people about it, so they had a story to tell. And in a lot of cases, these authors were writing to a specific demographic. There was a specific population of people that they wanted to tell, and they wanted to emphasize a specific part of the story. And we see this in the different Gospels. And then you had some further filtering that occurred during the canonization process, where basically you had committees of people, officially and unofficially, who adopted some parts as canonical and others as non-canonical.
Right, the Council of Nicaea, for instance.
Yes.
4th century or so,
Yeah.
threw out a bunch of books which could have potentially made it into the Bible, but they were like, this doesn't really hang together. So it's really kind of like a compendium of stories that are sort of edited by one guy. I think Isaac Asimov used to do a lot of those.
Right. And so basically we have a bunch of Bible stories here that use the same themes, the same places, the same people in a lot of times. But that's not an indication that the work was divinely inspired. And in fact, you see a lot of the hallmarks of fan fiction in this because they get different details wrong, or they disagree on different details. That is very common in fan fiction.
I mean, in a sense, the whole New Testament is kind of fan fiction playing off the Old Testament.
Right.
I mean, obviously, the Old Testament at that point had been around hundreds of years.
Right.
And there were a whole bunch of, well, let's call this thing a prophecy and then say Jesus fulfilled it and it's part of the same book.
Right.
Or Paul, who wasn't around, St. Paul, who was never around during the original stuff and never met the actual physical Jesus. He met what he called a ghost of Jesus on the road to Damascus.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, the idea that you've got all these stories in the Bible and they, in some places anyway, tell a coherent story, that's a pretty unremarkable thing. In fact, it's one of the most unremarkable things you can think of because as humans, we're storytellers. It's what we do. It's one of the things that defines us as humans. So, why would we not have a book like that tells stories?
Right.
It's fan fiction. So, right.
Okay. Okay, Stotch.
Hi. Hi, Jan. Hi, Russell. I have an important question.
Okay.
I tried to ask this last time I called, but I think the one host got mad at me because he seemed frustrated and his eyebrows were going a mile a minute, and he hung up on me.
Was that me?
So No, that wasn't you. You were pretty cool.
All right. Thanks.
And,
I do remember being frustrated with you, so watch
okay,
it.
but you acted very, very civilized.
Okay, thank you.
But okay, I'm a very curious fellow, and I like go searching for the answers to things. And I go out sometimes to haunted houses and other places to have like that have supernatural occurrences. And like I told you the one time, I met a troll in Norway.
Right, a troll
and
named
the ghost,
Troll.
and and I saw ghosts too, several ghosts sometimes on my adventures. And I'm not really a religious person actually, but I do believe in God. And
Right, and trolls.
Yeah.
But the main reason I believe in God though is because of creation. And can I ask you guys, if you don't believe in God, then how do you explain? Like, this is the one thing that really gets me. If you don't believe in God, then how do you explain how everything just came from nothing? Do you think it came from nothing, or do you think there was something that was always here? Like, I'm just curious to know what you guys think.
Before we go off on that, I mean, you know, while you're in the process of investigating this stuff and looking into the answers, do you ever go to like mainstream scientific publications to try to figure out what the state of the science is? I mean, have you considered, for instance, reading Stephen Hawking's books, which I understand are very accessible, or maybe Richard Dawkins' recent book, The Greatest Show on Earth?
Yeah.
Which explains evolution in a lot of detail.
Or Lawrence Krauss's book. Actually, he's got it up on YouTube. You can watch it for free.
He's got a 1 hour.
Yeah, it's a 1 hour
lecture,
YouTube.
Which
Yeah.
is, and then a much longer book based on
but it's
it.
called A Universe from Nothing. So
Right.
it's like not hard to.
I mean,
Google
if
that.
you're gonna go, like, you know, if you're gonna say you're investigating stuff, looking into like forums and, you know, stuff that random theologians say might not be enough. It might be easier to read the scientific stuff than you're actually thinking.
Sometimes I do look into some of that stuff, but a lot of that stuff is just like really over my head, like really complicated to understand. Especially like when I'm reading it in a book.
Have you tried Stephen Hawking?
No.
You should.
He's
He's
pretty
a good writer.
accessible. Yeah.
I think maybe I wouldn't understand the things he's talking about.
I
because
think
a lot
that you shouldn't dismiss it until you try. I mean, the thing is, when you go looking for the easy answers, the kind of stuff that, you know, that simplifies everything and makes it easy for you to understand. I mean, a good science writer will do that for you, but there is such a thing as being tempted too much to go for the easy stuff, which you know, which appeals to the kind of thing that you want to think, instead of doing the work to find out what we've actually discovered from people who have already done the work. You know what I'm saying? It's not that I don't want to answer your question. It's just that I feel that there's some basic background that you could fill in yourself a bit better, and then maybe come back with specific questions about, well, I read about the Big Bang and I read about evolution and I think I understand this, but there's something that I don't get, and maybe come back to us with more specific questions than, like, you know, what is the Big Bang?
Well, no, I saw a program about the Big Bang,
Okay.
and what I got from it was that there was something here at one time,
Right.
and somehow it changed into the universe that we know today. Is that right?
Sort of, but that's pretty oversimplified.
But
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that, like, the universe created itself, or that there was something already here that became the universe?
Well, I guess my question to you would be, why do you think the universe needed to be created?
Well, if you don't think the universe was created, then you're of the opinion that the universe was always here. So then you have to believe that something can come from nothing.
No, because an act of creation implies that there was some intentional thing that happened, and I don't know that that's a justified conclusion.
Not necessarily, because if you had just a natural occurrence which the universe came from, you could say that the universe was created because of that occurrence. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was deliberate.
I wouldn't use that term. I would say that the universe came into being or came into existence.
Okay.
So
Right. I mean, like, you know, if a bunch of rain falls into a hole and there's a puddle there, would you describe that puddle as having been created?
No, but I'll say
so
it
you
came
wouldn't.
into being.
Okay.
But it would have had to have come into being from something else. Like the rain is what made the puddle come into being.
Right, but you wouldn't describe the puddle as having been created then.
No, I probably wouldn't use that term.
Okay, that's why we wouldn't use that term for the universe. It's not that, I mean, it's not that the universe couldn't have been created. It's that saying what created the universe sort of biases your expectation of what the answer is before you've had a chance to fully consider all the options.
Okay, I understand. But I use the word the phrase came into being. The universe came into being.
Yeah.
Do you guys believe that it came into being from something else, or do you guys think that the universe was always here?
I accept the Big Bang as the leading explanation for how
Right.
the universe came to exist.
And one of the things that you ought to understand about the Big Bang is that, in a sense, like when you have this very super dense ball of stuff, you know, the universe, the way that we understand the laws of physics has some limitations. Like, for instance, we only found out in the last century that things that we think are the laws of physics change significantly when you have something going so fast that it's almost the speed of light, or something that's so small that it's you know, the size of an electron. You're familiar with that a bit, right?
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, you know, at light speed,
That's the fastest
stuff we
you
used
go.
to think, like Newton's laws of motion, like force equals mass times acceleration, you know, things get warped when they're going really, really fast. So we have the same kind of problem looking into what happened near the beginning of the Big Bang. Basically, when things get packed into a very small, dense area, we don't know how they'd behave. And there's actually several different ways to think about it. Jen mentioned Lawrence Krauss's lecture about a universe from nothing, which suggests that actually weird stuff happens where particles and antiparticles pop into existence all the time, and the universe may actually really have come from nothing for no reason. But that's just one idea that people have. I mean, there is the possibility that something, you know, that sort of a metaverse that exists outside the universe but contains the rest of the universe did exist forever. The problem is, we don't know. And it's not that we don't know any possibilities, it's just that there are too many possibilities and no way to test them. God is one hypothesis that people throw out there, but that's actually one of the least useful ones that anyone suggested, because, you know, that's absolutely impossible to test, and it seems to fly in the face of evidence we've already got.
Okay, so Anne said that she thinks the Big Bang is what brought the universe into being. Do you think that the universe, like the Big Bang, came out of nothing, or do you believe that there was something there that had been there forever?
This is the part where you need to take some time to understand what the Big Bang actually says. So I recommend that you go investigate that.
Yeah,
But you're not
seriously.
answering my question, though.
Hawking's book, what is it? I can't remember the latest
Yeah,
one.
I can't remember.
Well, no,
Sorry.
because it's an easy
A
question.
Brief History of Time
Brief
is
History of
like 10 or
Time.
20 years old or so.
Yeah,
There's a recent one that he wrote, but check him out on Amazon. see if you can get through some of that book and then call back.
Well, wait, hold your horses a minute now. I
Okay.
just want to know if you think that there was something here
Don't
before
know.
the Big Bang happened. No.
I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay, so you don't know?
Right.
Okay. Can I ask another question, or have I been on too long already?
Go ahead with one more. I'll try to keep it quick, though.
Okay, well, another thing that keeps bringing me back to God is evolution. Now,
Okay.
I believe in evolution, and I actually think that that's supports God, because I see like design there. Like, say, a long time ago, you were living on an island, and there was no food on the island, and you had to swim to another island to get food and then come back. But there were monsters in there that were trying to eat you. And so you had to keep swimming back and forth and trying to avoid the monsters. So after time goes by, eventually you start to evolve and you start to get like fins and gills.
No.
It
So
doesn't
that you
work
can
like
go
It doesn't
that.
work that way.
faster.
No.
Nope.
And it doesn't work that way?
No.
No, you've got it wrong.
You need to read Richard Dawkins' book too.
Or, I mean, if you want something brief, go to talkorigins.org and look up something like Evolution 101 or Introduction to Evolutionary Biology,
But
is I think
based
what the
on the
article
things
is
that
called.
I've seen already, that is what it seemed like it was to
Okay,
me.
No, that's
you
not
need
how it
to
works.
try again, because
Okay,
that's
well,
not right.
Can you tell me how it works then?
If you go to Talk Origins,
Yeah, but
they'll walk you through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's too long
just-
and too basic to give this to give a whole scientific introduction to it, and I think you should read the article.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
Well, wait a minute. I want to say just one more thing. What exactly is an atheist-friendly person?
An atheist-friendly
Somebody
person.
who hangs around
Yeah.
with atheists and is nice to them, even if they're not
Yeah.
an atheist.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm not an atheist,
Okay.
but
Yeah, we got that.
I can always come and visit you guys down at Threadgills, right? Sometime.
Sure.
Because
Just
I live in Pennsylvania, so
Okay.
it's kind of far. But if I'm ever in the area, I can always stop by and have a
if you
drink or
think
something
you
with
would
guys.
enjoy that, but I'd have to warn
Yeah.
you that people at dinner don't want to get into these kind of long arguments a lot of the
Yeah.
time. So,
Well, then I'll try to find you two guys, because I think you're the nicest hosts.
well,
You know,
thank
I-
you very
Show.
much.
I won't talk to you about this at dinner either.
Okay, then maybe you're not as nice as I thought.
Jen's very nice, but she has standards.
Is it okay if I send you some pictures that
No.
I took of the ghosts that I saw?
No.
No.
I can't send you
I
pictures.
don't want my
No.
inbox filled up with that stuff.
No.
Sorry. Go buy yourself a website and post it there and send us a link.
Will you look? Okay, will you look at the link?
Maybe.
If you see
Okay.
Scotch Barn Adventures
Yeah.
at yahoo.com.
Okay.
That'd be
All right.
Stotch, have a good day.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Email
Bye
that.
bye.
Bye. Luis in Los Angeles.
Hi, how are you doing, guys?
Good.
How are you doing?
Well, the reason why I'm calling is to share with you and your listeners the latest news related to the criminal prosecution against the Catholic Church in Los Angeles, California,
Okay.
for the sexual abuse against hundreds of kids committed by priests and the subsequent cover-up by the Catholic Church. This case has come to an explosive situation now because it was lagging in courts. And the reason why it has come to this situation is because the district attorney requested to the church the disclosure of all documents related to these cases. The church denied that request. The district attorney went to the judge. They got a judge decision in order for the church to disclose those documents. The church appealed. They lost the appeal. And now the church was obligated to disclose all documents related to child abuse. And I have to tell you guys, it really, when you read this, it really makes you very angry. This has become really first-page news in all the media in California. On my part, I have extracted three specific examples, three specific cases of child abuse on the part of 3 different priests that I would like to share with you if you allow me, because it really makes you wonder what the hell is the Catholic Church doing, you know. The disclosure of all those documents, it's really very damning to the Catholic Church. Would you allow me to tell you what happened?
I agree with you that it's important to keep an eye on this stuff in general. I'm not sure if, is there anything specific that you'd like us or our listeners to, or is this too close to a call to action?
Well, one thing I'm really concerned about is I don't want you to say anything on this show that would identify any of the victims. So,
oh no, there are no names at all.
Okay, or even situations that
specific cases, I raised names, even though the documents are indeed they tell names of the priests, etc., etc. But I raised all names.
Can you sum up one of the stories?
Yes, well, I made it very
brief,
so it's going to take only a couple of minutes for all 3 cases.
Just give me one. Give me your best one.
Okay. One is the case of a priest that in 1991, after Mass, on a regular basis, he would lock boys in his room, the boys that were helping him to tell Mass. He will get naked, and then he will proceed to rape the kid while he was connected on the phone to a porno site.
That's
and
terrible.
running hundreds of dollars in phone charges, at the same time that he was videotaping himself raping the kids. Cardinal Mahoney, I'm sorry, he was the head of the church in Los Angeles. He knew about this, and he knew all the details of what was going on, and he did absolutely nothing to stop it. This priest continued to do the same thing for 2 more decades until the church took very drastic action against him, not for raping the kids, but because he violated church laws related to how this priest was handling himself, confessing parishioners, something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the important part here is not so much the bad actions of one person who happens to be associated with the Catholic Church, but the systematic way that that the church leadership sort of manages to insulate themselves from the law and say, well, we'll handle this stuff internally and we'll punish him if they break our rules, without specific regard to whether it's a matter for law enforcement to turn these people over. They shouldn't have special immunity just because they happen to be a high up member of the religion, and I think that's despicable. So, and I'm sure you agree with me.
Yes, that's correct. And in relation to what you just said, there is something that I would like to tell you that is incredible. When the Catholic Church learned about certain cases, and these cases started to become to the public knowledge, and the district attorney started to inquire about these cases, what the Catholic Church did, they sent the priests involved in child abuse to other states for one specific reason, because these priests needed psychological attention.
Right. They shuffled around.
The law says that a psychologist has to report to the authorities when a rape has been committed against a child in a case in which the psychologist is taking care of a patient. If the patient has committed this rape, then he has to report to the authorities. So the Catholic Church sent these priests to states where the law does not have that requirement.
Right, yeah, they shuffle people around and basically hide the evidence of this as long as possible. So thanks for continuing to make our listeners aware of this.
Okay, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Right.
Ian in Tampa, Florida.
Hello.
Hi, Ian. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I'm an atheist personally, but I used to be heavily involved in a Christian church, and I still have a lot of friends from there and stuff, and we have friendly banters and stuff like that. And they're super into William Lane Craig and all those famous apologists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was just calling you guys to get your opinion on like some of the stuff they're always saying. Basically, what they're always claiming is that people like Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and people like that are always putting like empirical evidence on like a pedestal, and I guess they're always putting down philosophy and things like that, and they're always claiming that philosophical evidence and like logical equations and things like that actually should be higher than empirical evidence. And I was just kind of calling to get your guys' opinion on that.
I think if they had any empirical evidence to back up their beliefs, they would not be saying that.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, you think about it. I mean, what do they have? They have especially William Lane Craig. He's got a philosophical argument. That's it.
Right.
What does he have?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Right.
And like they're always, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so many of the arguments for God, they boil down to sort of mental masturbation in a vacuum. I mean, because if they said, if they had something where it was like, oh, there was this cliff and written on it in ink, and before this person's eyes, and there's a videotape to corroborate it, the words, I am the Lord thy God, appeared in a pillar of fire. I mean, if that sort of thing happened, they'd be yelling, that would be the first thing they came to you with.
Right.
But
Yeah.
instead they come up with this stuff like, the argument from design and, look
Right.
at the trees, how can you not see the hand
Well,
of God in that stuff?
And one of the things that William Lane Craig is known for is this idea of this self-authenticating witness of the Holy Spirit.
Right.
So I don't know if you're familiar with that particular apologetic, but
No, I don't really follow him all that much.
okay. So basically, someone, I think it may have been John Loftus, posed a question to William Lane Craig that if you could go back in time to the tomb where Jesus was allegedly placed, and you go in there and you find out that he didn't resurrect, that there's a body there, and that you could verify that it was, the guy everybody was calling Jesus, that he was dead, he didn't resurrect. Would you then believe it? And he said no, because because of the self-authenticating witness of the Holy Spirit. Because in his thing is the Holy Spirit is telling him that this is real, and therefore no empirical evidence is enough for him to reject his beliefs.
That's just illusion.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, that's impenetrable. I can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the questions that I like to ask to people who take this line of argument is, look, there's hundreds of other religions besides Christianity that also rely on these philosophical arguments. Why don't you believe in any of them? Why would you reject Mormonism and their golden tablets? Why would you reject that Muhammad had a divine revelation of some sort? What makes you so sure that this philosophical stuff doesn't lead you to these other religions? Because if you don't have empirical evidence to actually tell the difference between all these things that you want to believe based on pure philosophy, you're just down to an arbitrary choice.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. I just have one more question for you guys. I'll try and make it really quick.
Okay.
Okay.
Basically, one of the other things that they always claim is that, I personally believe that we're constantly, everything is aimed at survival. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that, we as a species are always aimed at survival. Everything we do is aimed to survive and be, the best, the highest species in the animal kingdom and things like that. But
Well, surviving and reproducing, don't forget
Right.
that part. That's
Yeah.
important. Because,
Right.
you could be the strongest, fastest thing in the world, but if you're born with no reproductive organs, then, you don't get to pass that on.
yeah, okay, yeah. And then what they say is, if everything's aimed at survival, then how can we trust that anything we find is true? Because it's not going to be necessarily true or intellectually honest to reality, but it'll just be aimed at what we see fit to survive. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I don't understand the question.
We can't trust anything we find. We can't trust anything that we find, any scientific findings, because it's just going to be aimed at survival. Like, there's not going to be any truth to it. It could
So
be.
how do they trust their religion then?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it just goes back to the whole God.
Yeah, I mean,
them-
you know, these are valid philosophical questions. I mean, there's a whole branch of philosophy known as epistemology, which covers questions like how do we know stuff? And, you know, that's worth reading about, certainly. But what religious people do when they raise these questions is not try to look for answers, but to try to set their personal pet religious beliefs aside into a special magical category where they say you can question everything but not this.
Right.
And then once they've done that cheat with their own religious beliefs, then they can say, well, our religious beliefs, since I've exempted them from these questions, are the only ones left. So in general, it's a good technique to think about those same questions and see if you can flip them back around on the assumptions that the questioner has.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that makes total sense. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate everything you guys do, and I love the show.
All right.
So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Charlie in Denver.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm calling about, the last guy was pretty relevant to what I'm wanting to ask. My philosophy teacher and my book for philosophy has defined atheism as the claim that God does not exist, which, based on, a lot of, I know it's the difference between being a Gnostic atheist and an agnostic atheist, and I think most of us would be an agnostic atheist, where we don't know for sure that God doesn't exist, but we have reason to believe that the likelihood of God is very low.
Right.
And it seems like my philosophy teacher would define all of us as agnostics rather than atheists, and I just was wondering how I might deal with that, or
Well, I think the best thing to do, you might want to turn your volume down if you're listening on a computer and just listen to the call. I think, what you could do is just enlighten your philosophy teacher about, there are other included definitions for the word atheism that don't require you to state with certainty that no gods exist. And point out the fact that there are I guess different flavors of that. You can be agnostic atheist, you can be Gnostic atheist, and which I am depends on what God you're claiming exists. So, is your philosophy teacher agnostic when it comes to Zeus?
well, see, I used that, and she got concerned about knowledge versus belief. She didn't understand that I was trying to distinguish between those things.
Well, let me ask you this. When you get right down to the root of it, what's the real problem here? You've told your philosophy professor, I don't think there's a God, but I'm not 100% certain, right?
Well, yeah.
Okay,
basically.
so and she says, by my definition, you're not an atheist.
Well, and
right?
by my philosophy book's definition as well.
Okay, so why don't you just say, okay, then I'm not an atheist. So what?
Because I'm not sitting on a fence, and it's not like I don't know what I believe.
Yeah, well, make that clear. Explain exactly what you think, and then who cares if she decides to agree with what label you put on yourself? Why? As a philosophy professor, she ought to be willing to discuss the actual concepts in question, not what words we should put on the concepts, because after all, words are just made up by people anyway.
Well, it's just, I'm concerned that this definition mischaracterizes atheism in a way that...
Well, I mean, yeah, make
Yeah,
no
it's-
mistake, it does mischaracterize it,
Yeah.
and your philosophy professor seems to be the one who's confused about what words mean. But
Yeah.
in general, I find that it's a real waste of time to try to convince people that words mean one thing and not another. So what if you just say, okay, I totally don't believe in God, but fine, I'm not going to use the word atheist anymore. Now what? Convince me there's not that there is a God. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. It's just like... I would also be saying that I wasn't convinced by any of the arguments the atheist has for no evidence of God's existence.
Well, I mean, why don't you just address the actual arguments in class? Like Russell said,
Well,
I mean,
yeah, we're getting to that.
yeah, and I mean that's really the most important thing anyway. I mean, the label, you could change the label. You can say that, okay, this week I'm going to take, someone who believes that there's not enough evidence to accept that a God exists. We're going to call them blue atheists this week, and who cares, as long as you agree on what the term means, even if you know that that's actually too restrictive a definition of atheism, and I agree that it is, but if you agree that that's how you're going to use the term in that class, and that's what that's going to mean, then you can move forward and come to a common understanding based on the concepts you're discussing.
Well, then I'm going to have to write a lot more.
Okay.
Well, it's a philosophy class.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I'm going to have to, define what agnostic is and
Okay.
what my version of agnostic is,
You
instead
can-
of just,
Well,
I
mean,
think that
do
might be worthwhile.
It's good
Okay.
practice. I mean, in real life, you don't restrict yourself to writing 5-page papers if you've
Oh,
got
no,
10
it's just-
pages worth of stuff to say.
well, it's just philosophers have historically been long-winded, and
Yeah,
I
well,
just kind of not
that'll
want to
teach you
continue
to
that
take a
tradition.
philosophy class.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really interested in philosophy.
Well, you should be.
That-
So yeah, I think just agree on what the definition's going to be. Don't worry about it. For what it's worth, we agree with you. That's just too restrictive a definition
Yeah.
of atheism, but it's probably not a battle that's worth fighting
And
in your class.
part of the art of writing college papers is understanding how your audience thinks and trying to get through to the particular
Yeah.
person who will be reading your paper the best way. And now that you know how your philosophy professor thinks, it's totally okay to exploit that knowledge and avoid subjects that you think she would disagree with, and focus on subjects that you think would work and pander to her. Because if ultimately if your goal is to get a good grade in the class, and you know what it takes to write a good paper, then write the good paper and start a blog if you want to, communicate to a wider audience what your real thoughts are.
yeah, I've been thinking about doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Yeah,
Right.
thanks.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Nick in Philadelphia. Yeah, it's you. Nick.
Hello, Nick.
Well,
Hey, Nick.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Dude, this isn't Nick.
Okay.
Are you talking to me?
Oh, you're okay. I guess.
Dude, it's Joel and Einar. Hello.
Oh, I
Yeah.
said. Well, okay. Thanks for using your real names, but you're gonna have to wait until the end of the show.
How long?
You know what time the show ends?
Yeah, 15
Well,
minutes.
it's not our fault that you kind of picked up on us. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, actually, when you use a fake name.
Okay. No, I think Nick actually probably hung up and they called in.
Oh. well,
Okay.
Let's hope
That
that's
was,
what it was.
that was the Mats from Oslo actually using their real name, as far as I know, and we're going to talk to them after the show. Damien in Somerset, New Jersey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is, how can I be taken seriously as an atheist? Because I've had an accident where I was in a coma for a month, and everyone will say that it's just my anger at God.
Okay. So basically, because you were in an accident and you had a brain injury,
Yes, traumatic brain injury, that's me.
right. And so now people think that because of this, you're just mad at God, and that's why you're an atheist.
I suppose that's the argument that I'm, fear having.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you other than just if they ask you why, tell them why you don't believe in a God. And just know that there are so many people out there that are in the same boat. I mean, we hear from people on the email list all the time saying, hey, I had this accident, and because of this, I'm paralyzed, or I lost a leg, or something like that. And now people think, because of that, that's why I'm an atheist. I think it's incredibly dismissive of people that just because you had this accident doesn't mean that you can't evaluate evidence and come to a conclusion that the belief in God isn't justified by the evidence.
Yeah.
I told the last guy to start a blog, and I actually hate to reuse the advice, but if you're afraid that people will judge you based on the way you speak, then writing can be a really good equalizer. I think it's it's totally legitimate to be an atheist and it not directly come from the things that have happened to you in life. People have all kinds of experiences, and the point is that atheism is a legitimate philosophical position. And I think you should be honest about where you're coming from to atheism, and if people want to attack you as an ad hominem, that's their problem.
Yeah. Well, and just to let you know, I mean, it's not just limited to people who've suffered some kind of accident where they have some kind of lifelong injury as a result. People write to us all the time and say, oh, you're just atheist because something bad happened to you, and now you hate God. And it is a childish accusation that gets hurled at people. It's pretty disrespectful. I don't even know how you have a conversation with someone after that.
Yes, but I see it coming at me a lot stronger, simply because it was during my recovery that I discovered I was an atheist.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, if you've got a problem having these conversations in person, you're perfectly within your rights to say, look, guys, I find it offensive that you would take advantage of my condition and come after me trying to get recruits for your religion, and I don't want to have this conversation with you right now, but maybe offer them your email address.
Yeah.
That would be good, but since my accident, I came down with West Nile virus and went into a coma for the second time. So I like to say I came back from the dead twice.
Right.
What Jesus did wasn't so impressive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but because
No, I see what you're saying,
of the West Nile, I have double vision, and reading and writing is difficult.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Well, the other, I'm trying to think, there's actually some speech recognition software that might help you. And the nice thing about that is that you train it to recognize your voice. So even though you have difficulty with speech, you can train it. And that might be a way of getting, blog posts written.
Yes, thank you very much for that advice.
So
That's the first somebody suggested that.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, good. I mean, I hope that you can get this out there on a blog, because I think if you write this down on a blog, and if people want to know why you're an atheist, and you point them to your blog, and they go there and they can, read it. I mean, first of all, it gives you a chance to formulate what you want to respond to and how you want to respond to it, and then it will put it out there for them to read, and you don't have to sit there and struggle to explain it to them. And I think a lot of times it sort of puts a barrier between you and people that are really trying to take advantage of you at this point. So I would encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
I'd say thank you for all of your encouragement and for taking my call.
Yeah, thank you for
you.
calling. I'm really sorry for what happened to you, and I think it's
okay because we thought about it, but it wasn't your fault. It came down to a close vote, but I said no. Russell had nothing to do with it.
Dude, you have an awesome sense of humor. You would make a great blogger. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
David in Houston.
Hey, that was quite the phone call. Listen, I'm just going to make this quick, guys. A long-time watcher, but second-time caller. I never realized it, but I guess about 2 months ago, I noticed that there was an office, I guess, or church, whatever you want to call it, of Scientology in Houston. And I didn't know that. And I actually went to get some coffee and noticed it was there. And I know enough about Scientology that just stay away from it at all costs. So I decided to go in and just start talking to them as if I was merely curious. And, Tom Cruise is a figurehead. And I bet they asked me no less than 15 times, are you a member of the media? Are you a member of the media? And it had to be every other question. And then eventually I said, can you demonstrate anything that can show me why someone would want to be? And believe it or not, I was almost immediately put on this thing, the e-meter.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Yep.
Yeah.
I've done it.
Bottom line is, they asked me what is the most difficult thing I've had to deal with in my life, and it was my relationship with my father. And we went over it and over it and over it and over it to ad nauseum until it gets to the point you really don't want to think about it anymore, and it's just more of a mental nuisance. And I have to admit, when I walked away, I was surprised that I felt better. But the reality was they just brutalize you to death with it until you don't feel it anymore. I have the feeling that that's where people are finding this. Well, I don't think anymore. I think most people are, running away from it rather than going to it. But I think that's probably where the attraction comes from. I just wanted your opinion.
It's really cold reading. It's no different than so-called psychics pretending they know everything about you. They're really just asking leading questions and letting you tell them about your life, and then pretending they knew it all along.
Yeah.
Well, Russ, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, tell me if this matches your experience. When I got the e-meter reading, and I was very upfront, I said, I'm not going to buy into Scientology. I'm a host of an atheist show, but I'm really interested in your religion. Tell me about it. And when they put me on this, you grab the handle, right?
Yes.
And then there's a little needle that swings wildly up and down, and very, very tiny changes in pressure can actually swing the needle way off to one side or the other. So I mean, if you just tighten your grip barely, it goes up like halfway to the top.
Well, they actually said that the tightness of your grip will affect it. Even if you move your hands, it will affect it. So just about anything you do with your hands could affect it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's an amateur cold reading machine is pretty much what it is. They can think anything they want to about it. You can, I mean, you don't have to squeeze that hard to make it swing.
So ultimately, you're saying it's the machine that sucks the money out of your bank account?
Pretty
you have
much.
to pay for these readings?
you know, they tried their very best to sell me every conceivable book that was in there, and I just very politely backed out after a little while and started nodding my head and said, well, take care. And while they were still talking, I literally just left and went back to work. But I just found it amazing. I never knew what it was about, that as soon as they start asking a question, and you answer it, they want you to answer it in a different way, maybe 19 different times.
Right.
So in other words, at least psychologically, you are defeating every conceivable whim and notion that you have correlated, let's say psychosomatically, to this topic until you fully exhausted it on your own. But complete worthless. Absolutely worthless. Anyway, I just thought I'd call and give you my experience.
Yeah, well, thanks for that.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye.
Okay.
Right. So I guess we have Nick back on.
This is Nick in Philadelphia, right?
Yes.
What's up?
Okay, hey. They turned off on me before, someone in charge.
Okay.
So I want to talk to you about certain things about consciousness. Like, have you heard of the flower of life?
The flower
of life? No.
No. It's a pattern, and it flows through basically. It's basically what the universe came out of. And
why would you say
find
that?
The pattern. You can find the pattern in pretty much in everything from everything. Basically, even things that are non-tangible sound and.
I don't know. Is this anything like the Fibonacci pattern, which shows up in spirals of sunflowers?
That's another pattern. I get a lot of my information from this one thing. It's called spirit science.
Spirit science.
Spirit science, okay.
Like I told the first caller, maybe you should try reading science instead.
But, there's a lot of scientific studies that are like legit about certain things. I'm down here. I'm a little excited.
So what's a spirit?
Spirit. Well, it's synonymous with the word consciousness, essentially, and consciousness is essentially what makes up everything, basically in different forms. It's like.
Wait, so consciousness makes up... I mean, okay, I'm with you so far when you say that, consciousness exists. Oh, we're actually really running out of time.
Yeah, we've got like 45 seconds left.
Yeah. I wouldn't agree that consciousness is in, like, rocks and stuff. Are you a pantheist?
I'm an atheist, but
okay.
It's a different perspective of things.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we got to go.
Yeah.
So call back next week, okay? That's our show. We'll be at Threadgill soon. Thanks to our great crew. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
And see you next week.
Right.
Okay. Hello, Internet.
Yeah.
We're going to hang around for a few more minutes. And, okay, so Matt from Oslo, who I haven't picked up yet, but they're really two kids in Sweden named Joel and Einar, who I've been emailing and chatting with a little bit for a couple of weeks. I want to say that Einar is an awesome StarCraft player and has analyzed the hell out of some of my games, and I've improved greatly thanks to him. Haven't really talked to Joel yet, and Joel really wants to talk to me now. And of course, they've still been trolling the show for a few weeks, but they've been nice enough to hold off and not try to fake us out during the show, as far as I know today. And so I'm picking them up. How are you guys? You're on the line together, right?
I do. So, this is Matt from Oslo, also known as Einar, but I'm going to let Joel talk first because he has some things that he wants to clear out with you. So.
Okay. What do you got, Joel?
Can you please accept me on Skype now, because I called in?
Dude,
you seem to have way too delightful times with Einar, and I want to partake in that.
Are you guys still gonna keep calling and swearing at us, or what?
No, not if you accept me on Skype.
Okay, so...
And play Heroes free with me, dude.
Okay, yeah, and so we talk about video games a lot, which Jen you've made fun of Einar for that. But, you know, I'm a grown man, I like video games, so... First, I think you have something to say to Matt's wife, Beth, Joel.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that email.
Okay, so Matt, the last time he communicated with Einar, said the way you can show you're actually sorry is to just quit calling. Is that a fair first step?
Well, actually what he said was that I should make a blog post about it or some sort of video.
Well,
or just
he said if you're
apologize.
really, really sorry, you can do that, but I don't think he really
Yeah.
expected that very much.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that I don't see the point in stop calling. Like, it's fine if I call it on the after show if you agree to it. Like, I see no problem
Oh,
with
yeah,
that. So.
yeah, that's fine. But, I mean, can you stop trying to fake us out? Because that's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I want to stop that, of course.
All right.
Like, one of the purposes to call here was to, like, tell you that, because I'm not stop calling here and try to get in as some stupid shit and just yell, you know, that's just mean or stupid. But hey, now that I'm talking...
We agree with that.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, Jen.
Yes?
I'm not a 16-year-old gamer who lives in my mom's basement. Where did you get that from?
Oh, you leave breadcrumbs all over the internet.
Well, he's actually a 17-year-old gamer
Yeah,
who
I
lives in
know.
a room in his parents' house.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so... Might not want to insult me about that phone because that's a bit awkward.
Okay, so you've been mad at people for a while. I mean, you said you like me. You were mad at Matt for the way he dealt with your call the first time, and you were mad at Jen for
Yeah.
insulting gaming. And are we over that now?
Yes, I can forget about that easily.
All right, Jen, are you? I mean, if they quit calling, can you be
If they
nice
quit
to-
calling and trolling the show, I'm fine. I don't even know what you got out of it, but whatever it is, I hope it's out of your system and you're done with it. Because
Well, we got pleasure out of it, and it was Joel who told you when you were on the show. It was not even me, so that's a bit awkward too. Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna stop.
But you know now that
Good.
like getting pleasure by being rude to other people is not the best way to get on their good side.
It's not the best way to get friends.
All right.
Well, no, because you really kind of made yourselves a laughing stock.
I know. It's actually really scary that I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
quite recent.
no, I mean, thanks you guys for your honesty, and I appreciate you calling and being serious
Wait.
for a change. Yeah.
Russell, don't thank yet. I gotta
Okay.
say something.
What's that?
Is Matthew? I assume Matthew Dillon will be watching this.
Okay.
And I just wanted to call in here and tell him that I'm so sorry for everything I've done to him. Even if it has gotten some positive feedback because people like Matt from Oslo, well, some people like him, it has still done quite some damage to the show because we do take up some time on the show, even if it's kind of little, because we just call in and scream and then hang up. But still, I'm so sorry because Matt Dillon doesn't like it, and it's his show, and I just wish I could be friends with him again. Well,
Okay.
I'm never friends with him, but I want to become his friend, you know. So, and so does Joel here. He's like totally down for that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I
sure.
mean, I still don't know if being friends is in the cards, but I mean,
I
it's
need you to learn me to counter presuppositionalist apologetics because Eric Hovind is a douchebag and I can't beat him in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joel, are you really a Scientologist?
No, dude, Einar is spreading lies all over the place.
Oh, okay.
I fucking hate that shit. But I'm annoyed by Eric Hovind because I Skype with him and
Okay.
he uses that Site 10 Brockengate shit on me and I can't counter it.
All right.
It's impossible.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll accept your chat. Thanks.
Sweet.
All right.
All right.
Matt,
Bye.
Matt from Oslo here, guys. Matt from Oslo.
Right. Bye,
Yeah,
Einar
I
and
think I got
Joel.
that part. Bye-bye. Have a good one.
GG.
Okay. That was all right.
All right. Yeah.
Let's see.
Kenny.
Kenny?
Kenny, you still on?
Hi.
Yeah, the show's over and we're probably going to try to get out of here soon. So you can make some quick points or you can wait and try again next week. What's it going to be?
Okay, well, I'll kind of do this in summary. I'm working on the premise that maybe there's a possibility that you guys can't come up with a non-design inference analogy for the Big Bang other than using a man-made object engineered by man, such as a balloon. You got stamps on the balloon when you blow the balloon up. The balloon is space expanding. The stamps of the galaxies moving away from each other because the space between them is expanding. And so professors use this to illustrate the Big Bang. Well, I was wondering if you could give me an analogy from nature without it being something engineered by man.
The cosmic microwave background.
Nature.
Hello. The cosmic microwave background radiation.
Okay, the cosmic microwave background radiation, I'm asking for a natural explanation for inflation. How is the microwave background radiation illustrating the act of inflation?
Why don't you look that up? That is strong evidence for the Big Bang.
Yeah, I understand that it's evidence for the Big Bang, but I was asking for an analogy.
Why do you need an analogy
when you have
evidence? Are you not able to actually read the literature on it and find out what it actually is about instead of just calling it a balloon or whatever?
I'm sorry, I just looked at the screen and got totally out of sync with, didn't realize we were talking. Let me step out of the room here. Okay.
Wait,
my point is,
are there
is
two
that
of you?
because of the obvious design of the universe, that scientists actually need to resort to using design and analogy in order to illustrate.
Okay, well, I'm not using an analogy at all. The reason Jen mentioned cosmic microwave background radiation is because these are things that are actually observed, and they're the reason that we are aware of the universe expanding. So, I mean, you don't have to call it a balloon or anything at all. It's just the universe.
Okay, so if you were a professor and you were speaking to somebody who's just taken a physics course in school, a general physical science course, and you're trying to understand them, teach them the inflation of the universe, how would you describe it? By talking about all this technical physics stuff? Or
I mean, first of all,
well, it is a physics class after all.
Right. So. I assume that if it's a physics stuff, they don't need to be talked to in baby talk. They would have some background about the laws of. They would have some background about the laws of motion, and they would know some calculus, and you'd be able to explain how it is that we've observed that stars are moving away from each other, and then extrapolate backwards from there. You know, really, you only find this corny analogy stuff when you're reading stuff that's designed to simplify science for people who don't really understand science.
Oh, okay. So all the students that are beginning to understand science are just stupid people or something? Or?
No, no one said that.
I mean, do you know the equation for acceleration? Because that's like the first thing that physics students learn in high school.
Okay, well, that's fine. I was going to offer an analogy from nature for the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. You gave me an analogy, but you didn't give me one.
Well, rather than an analogy, I'd just take some evidence.
Well, Paul said, well, if you want evidence, maybe you're talking about the more David Hume type evidence of extraordinary evidence for an extraordinary event. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, that would be good. Yeah, it'd have to be pretty extraordinary.
Well, Luke wrote in the book of Acts that Jesus provided his disciples with many convincing proofs. The King James liked to use the word infallible proofs because there was no question in their mind that he risen from the dead after he finished with his proofs. And what were the proofs? Well, he appeared to the disciples over 40 days.
In the story.
Yeah, according to the story.
Yeah, and that is a story passed on to Paul, quoted in Galatians.
Mm-hmm. Right,
and it's the basic foundation for the historicity of Christ. He quotes the apostles by name.
Do you understand what the topic for today's episode was?
Oh, heck no. I didn't even get in the first part of this. I was late.
Okay,
it was, didn't get on the phone.
The Bible as fan fiction.
Okay, well, it's not fiction. There's no.
Yeah,
there's
it
no,
actually is. There's a fair
well,
amount of fiction
if
in
it's
there.
fiction, then we don't have any basis for the historicity of Christ. The majority of historians that say that don't know what they're talking about.
No, they actually do.
The majority of the historians out there are convinced that Christ lived, and they even believe his parables.
Do these historians say that he did the magic stuff that was attributed to him?
I believe historians work on the David Hume assumption.
Okay, so historians may accept that there was a
happen.
real guy named Jesus, but they don't accept any specific thing in the Bible as necessarily
Well,
factual about him.
They only challenge the miracles and stuff. They never challenge the parables. Or
Sure,
maybe that
because
he even
miracles
preached
are
the Sermon on the
inconsistent
Mount.
with physical evidence, so why would they believe it? It would be just like believing that Julius Caesar was a god in human form just because the Roman writing said so. You
Well,
wouldn't accept that.
Yeah, well, I know you want to go to lunch, and I don't want to interfere with that, but we can just go on briefly to one little thing that won't take long, and that's I know that you realize, as most people do, that there's golden rules in a lot of religions, and there are several Greek philosophers that had a
Right,
version
and
of
there
the
are some that weren't in religions, but in philosophical stuff that predates Jesus.
Right, but they all have one thing in common. They have a negative form of the golden rule. Don't do to others what you don't want to happen to you.
Yeah, that doesn't really matter that much
Jesus
to me. Rephrasing it slightly isn't evidence of divine
He didn't
intervention.
rephrase it slightly. He was arguing charity, and they were talking about acts that you're not supposed to do to someone. He was talking about what you're supposed to do to someone.
Okay,
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
So what?
It's the opposite.
So?
So what?
And it's unique. Well, it's unique because the Talmud teaches the negative form, and he didn't learn this from any Jew.
I mean, an angel
unique
coming
teaching.
down and giving some guy some golden tablets
unique
is also
teaching.
unique, but that doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, but you and your colleagues said there's nothing new under the sun, and there's nothing unique
I didn't
about
say that. That's actually a Bible quote.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's actually a Bible quote.
Yeah, but it's being used to illustrate you guys used it on
I
a
didn't say
PowerPoint.
that.
I haven't said that.
Well, no, you haven't, but Russell was on the show with a male counterpart that's in the, what do they call them, memes or something that Dawkins talked about. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I
A
know
couple
memes.
episodes ago, and he was talking about, he's the guy that comes on and says how the prophecies have failed and all this. And he talked, there's nothing new under the sun. Jesus never gave, he made a statement, Jesus never gave any statements that were really new teachings, nothing unique. And the golden rule of his version is very unique.
What?
You know-
Oh, Don Baker, right?
Yeah.
He talks about that.
The thing
I
about
don't
that is
remember
this
what he
idea
said.
of a golden
that's
rule
it,
has
Don
been
Baker.
around for much longer than Christianity, and just because somebody took something and rephrased it slightly, like Russell said, that's unimpressive. That doesn't mean they came up with a new idea.
And I mean, people do come up with new ideas without being divine. So even if
Yeah.
it was, so even if he did say some things that were completely distinct from anything anybody else has said before, you know, so did George Lucas. Midichlorians, that's new.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all fine, but it's kind of frustrating when you bring up one thing on your program, then you come on another program and act like you never said it.
Well, we're all
We
different
didn't-
people. I'm not
Yeah.
responsible for what everybody says, and sometimes they're actually wrong. I don't know if Don was wrong
Yeah,
in this case because I don't
I
remember.
don't know.
Well, there was a case where he quoted, I think, a verse in 1 Corinthians where he mentions that the second coming was imminent in the minds of the believers, but didn't happen because this verse made it real imminent, but the verse was talking about the brevity of a man's life. It had nothing to do with the second coming.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kenny, why don't you email the TV list and you can take Don to task for his misinterpretation of Scripture.
Well, that would take a long time to write it all down.
Oh, well.
There's so much he's wrong about.
I'm sorry, writing is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
thanks for
writing's
calling.
real easy.